Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are doing our daily pitching preview show with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Right now we're looking at the card for Wednesday, May 6th. Joe Duffy, thanks for being back with us.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
All right, Joe, how are things going at OffshoreInsiders.com? Are you turning profit week after week in baseball? How's it going there?
It's been very good in baseball, and we're having a nice NBA postseason. In fact, Lisa, we filed this report on a nice winning streak as of late, so things continue to go well, and this is a great time to jump on board because a lot of our best systems have to do after pitchers have at least 5 starts under their belt.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, CC Sabathia has 5 starts under his belt, and they haven't gone too great. Put it that way. They haven't gone too great, and now, he's going to be at Toronto. Toronto has one of the best offenses in the majors, clearly. Mark Burley on the other side, is not that, doesn't have much to write home about himself this year, but I think we can assume that Sabathia is very likely to get hit, and if Burley gets hit, we'll see an over. If Burley pitches okay, probably Toronto wins, but I think we can pencil it in that Sabathia is going to get hit. What do you think?
Well, Mark Burley's been getting drilled in his last 3 starts where he has an ERA of 9. Sabathia, you're right. He does have an ERA of 5.40. But he's pitching a little bit better as of late. The problem is he's not getting much run support. But you got to think that with 2 so-so pitchers, at least one of these teams has to tee off. And I think one of these teams could make a run at the total all by themselves. Yeah. So I expect this to be quite the high-scoring game.
And we might not, but probably, what's the total for this game going to be? I'd guess 9. There's no way it'll be higher than that, right? We won't see 9.5, right?
No, probably more around 8.5, I would say.
All right, and then another game that we might see a total. I don't know. Arizona at Colorado again. We never know what's going to happen at Coors, but Robbie De La Rosa and Eddie Butler. Those are 2 starting pitchers who don't inspire confidence, right?
No, that is definitely for sure. I mean, you're going to have the pretty high total there, and then truthfully, some of our better systems have to do with 2 guys with a high ERA and a pretty high total actually goes under because there tends to be a little bit of an over-adjustment. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't, do that knee-jerk reaction. I think this is going to probably fit into quite a few of our successful systems where it's counterintuitive. As I said, one of the keys to my success is being counterintuitive.
Right.
And I haven't really run the numbers yet, but I have a feeling this is going to actually fit into one of my under systems, to be honest with you.
It's just, Butler actually hasn't given up that many runs relative to what he probably should based on his peripherals. So I'm just worried that both of them are going to get crushed and we'll see 10 runs by the 5th inning. But you don't think that's necessarily a lock?
Yeah, and a couple years ago, I made a big mistake kind of getting into these advanced statistics, fly balls, ground ball ratio, et cetera. I still say it comes down to ERA and whip, and you're right. And you measure that when a guy has a high whip, and the whip is higher than the ERA, that does mean that he is flirting with some trouble. So still, though, it's going to be a pretty high total, and, I don't know. Bet the over at your own risk.
And then Max Scherzer, bet him at your own risk, too, right? He has been absolutely awesome this year, but Washington's only won 2 out of his 5 starts. They're going to be another big favorite against Miami. And what do you think? You think another situation where, probably Scherzer has another great start, but Washington is nevertheless overvalued?
Most likely. Remember, all year I've been saying that Washington is a team that I've been looking to fade. These teams that are so hyped, it's almost impossible to get value. And as you said, yes, Scherzer's a tremendous pitcher, so it's not like you're ever going to get value betting on him. And I really, probably would stick to my guns and say that Washington would be a pretty good fade situation, the good team with a good pitcher that's not really playing that well.
And then 2 young starters who I really like with big arms, Chris Heston and Garrett Cole. Both these guys really getting great results, kind of looking to bet on them one way or another each game, whether it's a team total under, them on the money line, them on the 5-inning line, whatever. Do we expect a good start from both Heston and Cole on Wednesday?
Heston, he's pitched pretty well, but he's not really going deep into the starts. He's had a bunch of quality starts. He hasn't pitched tremendously. His last 3 starts, his ERA is 3.72. So I think he's one of those guys that's kind of flirting a little bit with disaster. He's been a little bit of a surprise, so this might be somewhat of a regression to the mean. I'm not really all that high on Chris Heston at this point.
And then we have Alfredo Simon or Simone going up against Chris Sale. Both these guys got crushed in their last start. Sale really hasn't gotten it together yet this year, although, he probably should pretty soon. This might not be the easiest assignment, though, at home against Detroit. Simone and Sale both got hit hard last start. Which one do you think is more likely for a bounce back?
Bingo. I think when guys have been pitching fairly well and they're off of a bad start, there is a little bit of a letdown here. So I think this is going to be a pretty good situation where I would look for either or both of these pitchers to struggle. I would probably lean towards the over for sure.
We really lean towards the over. Well, yeah, we're definitely going to get a low total here, probably. I'm going to guess 7.5.
This might be a rare situation where you want to fade Sale or where he's really coming off of a rough outing.
All right, and then the last one I want to ask you about, Kazmir against Kyle Gibson, Oakland at Minnesota. You know, Gibson was great last start. That was unexpected. I bet against him, and I got burned by that. Kazmir, though, pretty good again, and, you know, I think until he runs into injury issues, which he probably will at some point this year, he's probably just going to be solid start in and start out, right?
Yeah, Kazmir, he's been money. He's one of the better pitchers in baseball. He's actually had 6 quality starts. You know, the way Major League Baseball defines quality starts is a little iffy, but he has pitched well. He's, you know, put up 20 in the third innings over his last 3 starts. So he's pretty much been money in the bank. There's not a pitcher who's more consistent than Scott Kazmir, and he would seem to have the pitching advantage here. As you said, Kyle Gibson coming off of a pretty good start, but it's not like he's got the resume that Kazmir does. So I would say a big pitching advantage for Oakland for sure.
So to sum up, Joe Duffy and I both think that Sabathia and Burley are going to be vulnerable in Toronto and Yankees. We think that at least one of them is going to get crushed, possibly both of them. Arizona, Colorado, interesting, a dangerous pitching matchup, but Joe Duffy's thinking that could be a situation where he actually might lean to the under. We both expect a big start from Scherzer, but possibly Washington to once again be overvalued. And I'm kind of high on Chris Heston. Joe Duffy, not as high on Heston. All right, what else did you want to mention from a Wednesday card, Joe?
Well, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned a guy who's usually a favorite pitcher of yours, Ubaldo Jimenez. He's
yeah, well, I'll tell you why. It's because I'm just not exactly sure what I think about him. He's done well so far this year, and this assignment, you know, he's going up against the Mets, which should be a relatively easy. I mean, you know, he's used to pitching against American League teams. Now he's going up against a relatively weak-hitting National League team in a pitcher-friendly park. But then again, he's going up against DeGrom, so that's a game that I sort of I'm watching and waiting. And yeah, if you have something to say about it, tell us.
Well, he's been, throughout his career, like I said, he's been as streaky as heck. You know, a few years ago, he had one of the best years ever in Coors Field, and then he went on a stretch for a couple of years where he was just awful, like a number 3 or number 4 starter. But we know that this guy is so streaky. While he's pitching well, I say ride the streak. He's a guy that I'm going to ride until it says otherwise. In Texas, they're a team, you know, they're not giving Colby Lewis any support, but he is pitching pretty well. I think that's not something that you'd necessarily look to continue, a team's lack of run support. So I do think that Colby Lewis should be getting a little bit more run support, and the fact that he's pitched well, I would probably look towards going with Lewis at this point.
Okay, so Joe Duffy, initial thoughts are possibly leaning on Texas and on Baltimore with Jimenez. Thanks so much, Joe.